And so here we are at Fujimi Studio, still very much a work in progress. This is designed to be the ultimate creative facility in a compact space for both me and my wife. This section of the studio is primarily for video and audio editing and processing. As a window into the creative process, I thought I might take a look at this recording session. This is for my upcoming single, The God Particle, the first single that I have managed to put together in about 6 years, barring one or two special projects. There are various reasons for this. One of them was definitely space, which I have enough of here, amazingly. Another of them was copyright trouble. Never underestimate the importance of copyright. I'd suggest that you look very carefully into the clauses in whatever contract that you sign with your employer. As it is right now, I am totally freeballing for copyright, so I can do whatever I want and use it for whatever I want. It's a fantastic feeling. This session represents the first official mixdown of The God Particle. As you can see, it's quite complicated. I've got nearly 40 tracks, perhaps. This was composed primarily on the Yamaha QY100. That QY100 is kind of vintage by now, but it's a fantastic standalone sequencer. I wish more companies still made these. Even Yamaha doesn't. Now when you compose in 16-track MIDI, you end up with a relatively finished mix spraying itself straight out of the sequencer. I'm never quite satisfied with the sound of that. For example, here is the straight MIDI that came out of the device. Of course, in post-production, it's often necessary to do things like revoicing and re-effecting. Here's what that same section sounds like, remixed, where I take each of those MIDI tracks and re-record it discreetly. Another reason for doing things this way is that in any sequencer, there's a limitation on the number of oscillators that can be operating simultaneously. What that means in practical terms is a limitation on polyphony, but not just polyphony. It's not just how many notes are playing at once. Each note may require several oscillators to give it its proper sound, and when a sound is reverberating, it's still taking up oscillators. For that reason, I always like to retrack what I record. Of course, another thing that happens after most of the MIDI tracking is complete is the introduction of the guitars. Just about everything that I write will require a guitar line somewhere. Usually it's going to require 3, 4, 5 guitar lines. I'm not saying they're great guitar lines, but I definitely use a few. Here's where the drama in The God Particle really starts. You'll be able to hear that there are some guitars mixed in. The insanely distorted lead line is actually a synth instrument, and that distortion is primarily coming from the DSP on board the QY100. I did, of course, tinker with it afterwards. Now that section featured 2 rhythm guitar lines. Let's check out what they're like on their own. When you split those out, you get an atmosphere that's very different from the rest of the piece. It's important to have all kinds of different elements that mix together to create something dense and hopefully meaningful. There's another section of the piece that's more melodic, and that involves a lot of guitars. Let's check that out with just the guitar lines highlighted. Sometimes it's difficult as a mixer to bury those guitar tracks in a pretty large arrangement. However, the result is usually satisfying, and it gives me room to create remix after remix later. Sometimes creative decisions get reversed in the middle of what you're doing. This is an example of that. The guitar line I'm about to play was meant to be a fade-out section in the piece. However, I liked the guitar lines so much that I didn't want to fade out even a note, so in the final mix there's an abrupt crash. Here's what it sounds like with just guitars and one pad synthesizer. All the guitar tracks in this piece were run through the Boss BR800. I used it as the capture device for about 3/4 of the guitars, and then the final lines I just used it as a sound processor and ran the output through my AROREe UA101. I have a gigantic collection of compact effectors from Boss, and I use them frequently, but in this case, half the time a lot of my studio was still in boxes. It was great to be able to rely on the BR800 to create the sound that I wanted. All the guitar tracks were recorded with this Zematis Z-Series guitar. The pickups are Hyper Dragons, and as a pickup geek, I can still confidently say these are the nicest sounding humbuckers I've ever owned. Normally I customize a whole lot of things on each guitar that I buy. This guitar is going to remain dead stock. When I'm looking for visual inspiration and I can't see Mount Fuji out the window, I turn to my father's abstract artworks. Got one of my mother's paintings as well. Up there, still waiting for a proper home, is a beautiful painting by my friend Cassandra. My friend Jonathan's artwork is waiting for a home on the wall too. Of course, surviving the annoyance of posing for family photos results in everlasting memories. And who's that geek with the braces and the sweater? Having a weakness for premium Kentucky bourbon often results in free furniture, like these beautiful wooden boxes from Jim Beam. Right now, they're holding up some precious treasures. And as I start creating the elements that I will put together into the CG music video for the God Particle, it's great to rely on this particle effect system. This one is Particle Illusion from WonderTouch. Software licenses are one of the reasons that it's very handy to have multiple computers. Shooting the version of the music video for the God Particle that's in my head is probably not going to happen. It would require hiring at least one Japanese boy band, like Exile, to do the dancing. Maybe I'd want to bring in SKB46 or HKM 952 or some other shit like that. So for now, I guess I'm the only one that gets to see that version. I'll down a couple of shots of whiskey and see what comes up. In the meantime, this was a little bit of behind the scenes on the making of the music, and hopefully a preview of some of the things to come in the music video. Look forward to remix after remix, where hopefully in at least one of them, I'll get it right.